I, as a pupil, just lapped it up, and I feel it's actually influenced my whole life. And it was a very beautiful atmosphere, and we used to go and study the stars, with a teacher at night down in Nelson Park, that sort of thing. It was a much broader education than I got at Woodford House, which I went to later, and I enjoyed it much more.
I hear that you went to finishing school.
I did for a short period.
What was that involved?
Well, one of the most exciting things was going every week to the Louvre with a professor to study the paintings and sculptures, and we wore out our shoe leather going around many different wonderful places in Paris, and we were rather naughty. We spoke too much English, but I continued that my visual education was 100%. It was wonderful, and it changed my life. And I've become a collector of paintings, and I've become friends with the most wonderful artists. And now, my education in Paris was short, only 6 months, but it was very important.
And were you taught, when else happened at finishing school, are you taught to be a lady?
It was called Rangitaiti. We were taught to have good manners and to go to fashion shows, and we had a wonderful time. It was pretty exciting.
So then you came back to New Zealand and university for a year.
Then I went to university for a year. I was a great failure, and my husband was courting me at the time. I did do a little bit of work with the Aged People's Welfare Council in Christchurch, which I loved, being an untrained occupational therapist. And then in 1960, I got married and came down to South Canterbury to Craigmore, and Peter's family had been there farming, really, or leasing the land since 1861. So it was an old property and an old homestead. But thank God I started off in a very small cottage, which is typical of farming arrangements. But my first 2 children, Charles and Forbes, were born there.
So I'm talking to Fiona Elworthy at her home here at Rangitaiti in South Canterbury. What's Wrexham? So then you came down to Timaru, to your life down here south of Timaru, and there is a cultural difference, isn't there, from the north and the south, even in the country?
Well, I'd rather talk about the landscape, because that is the bigger difference for me. Not the people so much, but the high mountains down here, the ancient rock drawings, a sort of sense of freedom. I was very pleased to leave Hawke's Bay and come to a bigger landscape. My novels had more people, but I identified with the mountains, and particularly I have cared for and become close to those people who are interested in the rock drawings. And there's some very ancient Waikaha friends who have told me, and I'm very pleased that I'm guardian, kaitiaki here, of these old drawings.
And what state were they in when you arrived? Was anyone aware of their significance?
Mrs. Woodhouse was the only person locally who was on the Historic Places Trust, and she made sure that Peter and I knew how important they were, and virtually pointed the finger and said, get to and be sure that these are cared for, and that you are now in charge. And so we did carry on.